Hey, y'all ready to start? Guys, quit talking. We're on the air now. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining Sidebar. Thank you. I was just looking at some of the names of the people that are already here, Marilyn and Patricia and Ernest. And Stryker, thank you so much for being here. We always love it when we have had the same people come on that have been on from the very beginning supporting us. This is Sidebar. If you are telling friends about Sidebar, go to sidebartv.com, and that's where you're going to find out where we are and where you can listen. Of course, you're listening now, so you already know, but you can tell them we're on Facebook and X, and we're also on YouTube. It's so easy. You can even go back and look at anything that you might have missed in the past. And I was talking to Salo earlier, and I'm going to try to start getting the audio up for all of the shows. We used to have it on the iHeartRadio app, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be able to do that too. So in case you miss any of the old shows, you can go back and look at it. What happened in the news this week? What hasn't happened? March Madness, poor UT is out. U.S. paper currency will bear the name of President Trump. Is anybody surprised about that? The president didn't attend this year's CPAC. The House passed a bill to fund DHS. Now we have to wait to ask ourselves what's going to be happening in the Senate. Also, the president, I don't know if I should say finally, but he is talking about the GOP terminating the filibuster to pass the SAVE Act. And then finally, no end in sight for the war. I guess I can call it the war. At first, I was very hesitant to call it the war in Iran, but that's what it is, now 1 month old. Every week, please join us. Please have friends, family, anybody that you know. Tell them about the show. Join us to hear the former Bexar County District Attorney Nico LaHood, trial lawyer, managing partner of LaHood Norton Goss Law Group, and of course, George Araujo, scholar, former chemist, pharmaceutical researcher, and director. Talking about the war, I didn't get a chance to talk to y'all about where we were going to start, but the war in Iran, is it affecting our economy? Is it going to affect the midterms? I mean, is there a good news, bad news situation? Should I hold my fingers in my ears now to hear your answer?
Well, I mean, yes and yes.
I don't want to hear it.
Give the answer, baby. Give the answer.
Well, I mean, it's already affecting the economy. I mean, energy prices are up.
Yep.
There's prices at the pump. Transportation costs are up, which affects goods. I mean,
Yeah.
but then also you have the intrinsic value of it as well. I mean, the way the people are perceiving what's going on, and looking at the short term versus the long term. Look, it's affecting. I've been concerned about this. I've talked to George offline about the midterms, because to me, I think I've been pretty consistent. I don't
want to be on your side, but I'm starting to feel that way.
I don't have a side. My
you
side
do have a side that we're not doing
truth.
well.
Well, my side is truth, and I think that the platforms give a very different vision of the United States, Democrat and Republican. It hasn't always been that way. I've been through politics locally here. Yeah. I've seen the transformation in the political parties and the landscape. And I think both platforms give a very different vision of this country. I mean, so we as a whole, people, citizens, have to make a decision of what landscape, what future prospect do we want to see this country look like. I mean, that's it, how it is for me. And so I support the platform in general. But that's why I can criticize Republicans, conservatives, Trump. Dare I criticize Trump? But yes. And you can criticize that, but still support the platform because of policies that you believe, and everyone has their different opinions, will bless the most amount of people in this country. I am a traditionalist in the sense that I want to go back to the ideals of our constitutional republic, because it's the reason, no other reason. It's not the administrative state. It's not bullshit politicians. It's the set of ideals that has lasted 250 years. They were ironically going to be celebrating in July. And we're in the middle of this crap.
I know.
Now, so there's a lot going on. So I'm trying to pause, and I voted for Trump for situations like this. I mean, everybody freaked out over tariffs, and they were wrong. And all the experts out there were wrong. I'm not an expert in war and the strategy, and nobody is. I mean, we're observers with an opinion. Everybody is. All these podcasters, all these idiots out there with I'm not idiots, but I mean, everyone's got an opinion. And now I got an opinion. Georgia has an opinion. People watching have opinions. We're not in the rooms. We don't have all the information, and nobody has planned out and been part of attacks on international countries and war. I mean, I have a lot of experience in trial. I have a lot of experience in prosecuting and defending cases. I have a lot of experience in a lot of things, but this isn't one of them. So, and I think the vast majority and even someone that served in the military doesn't have experience in strategizing in the military. They're implemented what the strategists put together. So all that to say is, yes, it's affecting the economy. Here's the irony. The oil prices now are not as high as when Biden was in office and there was no war.
Is that not ironic?
Well, but we're emotional. This is why I really wish that we as a country would not be so feelings-based and so emotionally driven. And that's the problem. And I feel like a lot of politicians play to that. The Dems play to it much better than the Republicans. But we don't, and people don't just wait things out. You got to wait things out. You know, I've talked to George and I've talked about this before. You know, if you're a competitor in combat sports or you get injured, you got to weigh out the rehab. You got to just wait it out. You know, there's a process in place, and you do the therapy, you do the treatment, you have discipline, you don't irritate it, you whatever you're going to do to get you better back in your competitive sport. Yeah. And we don't do that here, and that's unfortunate. So I'm pausing still. I got my opinions, and all my opinions are directed towards the midterms. And I don't think as of right now, and I'm not a Debbie Downer. I'm just practically, I don't think it looked great right now. Of course, we have a little bit of time, not that much time, and not the way things are talking. I just like we all said here before, and I just hope this thing closes up, but it has to close up with our objectives in place, because if
that's right.
If the United States doesn't have, if we have egg on our face and Iran can claim a victory, and the victory for them looks different than a victory for us.
We don't want people running after a plane, trying to hold onto the wheels.
Yeah, well, it's so I don't know. That's it. I have more to say about that, but George,
and that's the end of it.
So those two big objectives, I think, are important to define and really kind of think about how we're doing in terms of meeting them. Number one objective, make sure that they don't have nuclear capabilities. That was the number one objective. That's been the objective since Operation Midnight Hammer last year. Okay, so progress on that. And then the other major progress is that they don't have military capabilities sufficient to exact lots of damage on their neighbors. And that includes Americans and American bases, but also, allies from the Arab coalition. So if you can say at this point that significant advances have been made in that regard, and that there's been quite a bit of progress in terms of decapitating some of the most radical nut jobs in the regime, I think it's hard to say that this has been a failure in any way, shape, manner, or form. And so I would say that this has been, and we keep saying week after week because it's just objectively so, this has been an enormous success. You'd never know it if you listen to the national media. But objectively, it's been an enormous success. Nico, I feel that way. I think you're right. There's a lot of people that don't feel that way. Mm-hmm. The people that have felt the way you and I feel about it are really sort of people in Trump's base. My worry, your worry, is that maybe those are being peeled off now a little bit. That support is less strict, and I think there's truth there, and I think we should spend a little bit of time in this show analyzing that, because people are wondering, and there's a lot of bullshit that's being spread out there, and there's other things that are legitimate analysis. I think we need to differentiate between those two. What's exactly going on, because that could have an effect in the midterms. Well, but back to, sorry, I was just saying,
go ahead.
Just to put a bow on the war stuff, I like to read people who have a very different opinion than I do, even down to liking or not liking Trump. There's the personal aspect of it, and then there's the like and the dislike of policy. I try to separate those two. Overall, I tend to like Trump. I really love his policies. But I try to find those individuals, again, who hate Trump and have hated Trump pretty consistently, and who have a visceral dislike for just about everything the man does, down to breathing. There's a piece in the New York Times, and I shared it with you guys early this week. It's called "The War is Going Better Than You Think." And it's written by a demonstrably so Trump hater by the name of Bret Stephens. I can't think of anything that's come out of Bret Stephens' mouth, or at least editorially, that's been positive on Trump. And he wrote, I think, a very insightful analysis. And what it does for us, Nico, I think, is give us some perspective before we buy into this narrative that Trump is the most incompetent. This is the most ridiculous war, and this is completely unprecedented in terms of how badly it's being run. And Bret Stephens peels back the layers and literally goes back some 30 years, all the way back to Operation Desert Storm. He looks at the Persian Gulf conflict. He looks at the Panama invasion. And he starts out, Nico, by saying most Americans probably don't look back at March 2012. See, I mean, in a 24-hour news cycle in social media land, which didn't exist in 2012, by the way.
Wow.
I mean, 1 minute is a lifetime.
Yeah.
So we're going back, Nico, 14 years ago. That's hardly that long ago. And he says as if they remember it at all. And think of terrifyingly high gas prices. In the month when the Hunger Games, I know you don't watch movies,
No.
But when the Hunger Games ruled the box office and President Barack Obama was on his way to a comfortable re-election, the price of Brent crude closed the month around $123 a barrel. That would be almost $175 dollars a barrel in today's dollars. As of today, despite Iran's effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz and its attacks on its neighbors' energy facilities, it's hovering around $100, like you said earlier. Slightly higher than the average inflation-adjusted price since January 2001, roughly $95. Just a little bit of perspective.
Yeah,
Now, I'm not
that's
saying this is
legit.
wonderful. I think it sucks that it's up around $100. It was $70, by the way, around in January before we got into this. But just for some perspective, I do believe that if the price hung out for a while, $180, let's say, we're nowhere near that. But if it was to hit $180 and it stayed that on a protracted basis, I think you'd be screwed in the midterms. That's terrible for the economy. But Stevens provides some perspective for us. We just got to sit back. The sky isn't falling. Everybody just relax. They said it was 4 to 6 weeks. We're 4 to 5 weeks in.
That means we got a week left.
Hurry.
Let's just, and so I think we just got to have some perspective before we start saying this guy's falling.
And I'm with you on that. The thing is that when you're sending troops and the troops aren't going to be there for another 2 weeks, and then you think, okay, is this more just positioning? Is there a plan? Is this just giving, as Rubio says, optionality to the president? Which I understand all that strategy, but this is not going to be 6 weeks. So that's just, I mean, if you're just reading the room, I mean, it's not going to be 6 weeks. You don't have to be an expert to figure that out. It's not going to be 6 weeks. And so it becomes a credibility thing. And then regardless of that gentleman being right about that article, and he's right, and this is kind of a point I was making up, and not as eloquently as he did it and factually, but that's not our audience today. People aren't reasoning that way. That's the problem. They're not reasoning that way. That's why everything in my mind, look, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
If Trump and Harris, if we were having the election today, with everything, I mean, it's hypothetical, with the coalitions that Trump has lost, and he has. I mean, rightfully or not, it doesn't matter. I mean, those are facts. Yeah. That's a fact. Those are facts in that article, but it doesn't matter. If the facts don't get your mind, then the facts, are worthless. Harris wins. Harris wins today, right now, today. If the election somehow mysteriously is happening right now, with the way that people are feeling, special elections being lost, for whatever reasons you want it, whether it's fatigue, whether it's frustration, whether coalitions are down, whether whatever, who knows the reasons? Experts, I'll listen to experts analyze that.
My thoughts on
in my opinion, Trump loses.
Yeah, fair enough. My thoughts on that is that I'm ambiguous about that. And if that's true, and very well may be, I haven't done the analysis at this point. It's a great question, but I'm ambiguous on it. And the reason I'm ambiguous about it is because you jumped off the Iran talking point. If he would lose, it wouldn't be because of Iran. It would be because of other things, and it gets us into some of the other topics we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, I'm not talking about just Iran. I'm talking about from everything, and that's why I get so frustrated with Trump. I mean, you know how I went off on his stupid ass comment about Mueller passing away. I mean, that's just so. It's just such an unforced error. I don't understand it. I don't if I'm there in the room with him, advising him. I think that's why Rubio's so stoic, because he probably has to be like, what the fuck did he just say? He's just stoic. He's stoic at times. He's got a great person. I mean, Rubio, I hope he's our next president. But that's why I look at everything, because when you're trying a case to a jury, there's unforced errors and there's little things. A jury's looking at you. Yeah. They're watching you. They're watching your client. They're watching how you respond to stuff. They're looking at things that you don't think they're looking at, from what you're wearing to how you talk, to what you're doing, how you respond to testimony that you think is bad for you or not, how you respond to judges' rulings, how you respond to everything. And people are looking and dissecting everything Trump does. And I'm not worried about the most of the MAGA base. I'm not worried about that. But the MAGA base doesn't win the election for Republicans.
So I think Trump being a dick on occasion is priced into the calculation of most voters.
No.
So I would say that.
I don't.
I do.
Not on independence.
Oh, no, but I understand.
Well, that's not on independence, Daddy. I mean, we cannot win. Republicans cannot win without independents, and some of those Democrats.
What I'm saying, I agree, brother. But what I'm saying is, Trump had already had a Trump 1.0, and he came out swinging about DeSantis. Maybe we thought the sky was falling when he came out very strongly about DeSantis. We thought, was that really necessary? Trump has had the dick factor from day one, and I'm saying that that's baked in. So I agree with you that if there is. I want to make sure we're clear on what we're disagreeing about. I don't disagree that factors in with independence. The question is it enough for him to lose? That's all I'm saying. And I guess I'm ambiguous about that because the dick factor, I think, is baked in. Here's what I think, and I want you to wrestle with this and tell me if you think I'm full of shit because I don't want to simplify it either. I think people are pissed. I do. I think that strongly gelled MAGA core is pissed off because on the major two fucking issues, immigration and on the economy, the GOP is nowhere to be found. They are not fighting for those things. That's not a Trump problem. That's largely a John Thune problem, okay? And less so Johnson because he's got literally a paper-thin majority in the House. But the United States Senate is in a very pivotal, very important position to be able to actually do some substantive things, ironically, on the big shit that people came out in droves, including the people who are watching Joe Rogan, by the droves, which are what? Immigration remains number one issue of import for people. Number one. Even on mass deportations, the Washington Post, of all people, came out and said we're at 79% still in support for mass deportations. We're not seeing it with the kind of intensity. And I'm not sure that Mark Wayne Mullins' appointment is really something we can all get excited about. I'm keeping my powder dry because of some of the things that he said in the past. What I'm saying is that on these big issues that we could have made significant headway in, the GOP has not shown a serious commitment to. And I'm frustrated about it. And I think those things are peeling off support, really, because there really haven't been the kinds of advances that we should be seeing on that stuff.
But how can it be fixed? How can it be fixed?
Well, I don't disagree with that. But
Department of Homeland.
But does that go back to Trump's leadership? Or lack thereof of controlling the party. I'm just asking.
I'm just trying to follow. I'm trying to follow what brought people out November of 24 to begin with. I'm just trying to go back there. Number one was immigration, and number two was the economy. Trump obviously owns responsibility for the economy. We can't say that he doesn't. But I think the reality is that the leaders that have been elected to help Trump make a difference have been nowhere to be found. And so we can't flatly place this on Trump. Yes, Trump owns some of this, but he doesn't own all of it. And it doesn't help, brother, that there's a reason why the Senate has what? Maybe a 15% approval rate. So stop bitching about Trump, I would say to people. Oh my gosh, he's at 42%. The Senate's in the basement. In fact, they're underground. And so that's not insignificant. So I'm saying is this, what's the point is what people are asking. What exactly is the point for me to come out and vote for these people when in the end they show zero commitment to the things that I care about? Republicans run a certain way and they govern another. This is the long story. It hasn't changed. And I would argue in places that are allegedly red, and right here in Texas, that's been a huge problem. And I'm separating your brother from present company.
Yeah, of course.
But I would say in Utah, in Oklahoma, in Texas, in Indiana, red state after red state after red state, Republicans are not stepping up to the plate.
Why?
Well, I would argue, I guess I would probably fall to Daniel McCarthy is a really good political analyst, and he would argue, for instance, that Republicans are really cut out of the same sort of elite cloth. In other words, that Republicans are basically products of the same elite culture and institutions that Democrats are a byproduct of. And that at the end of the day, they're basically Democrats without the obsession on taxation. They're basically the sort of more corporate-friendly version of the Democrat. And at the end of the day, there's really not much daylight ultimately between their values. And I'm talking about the squishes, the typical John Cornyn's, the John Tillis's, the Tom Massey's, for example. There's too many of them. And I don't think that John Thune I don't think it's an unacceptable criticism to say John Thune's part of that ilk. And he runs the United States Senate. So I think we've got a values commitment problem.
Well, I agree with that, but you're saying there's enough blame to go around.
I do, brother.
So then result.
where we are.
The midterms are
Exactly,
screwed. This is my
exactly.
point.
I know.
So what's the answer? Because I mean, I like identifying issues. I do, because I'm not a symptoms guy. I'm a root cause guy. The symptoms are important to lead us to the root cause. But if you hit the root cause, then you got the symptom. So that's my approach on everything. So then what's the answer?
There's a big silver lining, and the answer is just simply time. Well, you know this because you've actually been in politics. We're 7 months away from the midterms. And so on paper, that is a lifetime. In a sense, it's tomorrow. I get it. But it's a lifetime, and a lot can change. And the reality is, the very thing that I detest, and you know this about me, which is this horrific short attention span that comes from this instant access to so-called news on social media. That's our best friend. It's a curse and it's a blessing, because the closer you get to the midterms, if we can get some of these wins, if we can shore up wins on the SAVE Act, if we can shore up wins on ICE and CBP and DHS funding, if we can shore up wins on these policies, I do believe that the Iran war has a good shot of being ended. To your point, I don't know if it's 6 weeks right on the nose, but I think there's an opportunity there to bring this thing to shore, and I'd like to offer my thoughts later on as appropriate. If we can get these wins within the next 3 to 4 months, we're going to be a lot closer to the midterms. And guess what? The very thing that is a curse is going to be a help, because that's what people will remember. Yeah.
But
Not
why
this
is
shit
it
right
so
now.
easy for all of this to be lined up? The economy, the immigration, the Iran war, and then 1 week before it's time for everybody to go vote, somebody brings up Epstein, and that's the headlines everywhere again. I'm just saying it's that easy to change things around.
But this is where I wish people. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I'm not trying not to offend them either. But no, I just we were rooted in patience. I mean, when you let things play out a little bit, we feelings and emotions, to vote on your feelings and emotions versus a set of ideas. And to your point about the Republican Party, it's true. I mean, that there's a lot of criticism to go around.
So embarrassing.
But Trump is the head of the Republican Party. That's a reality. So I'm trying to, because I can
continue on that.
Well, because I can hear your criticism, and I agree with him. I agree. I mean, that's why I think the MAGA movement grew so much, because they were frustrated with the bullshit Republicans. They were just all talk and no action, and then campaigned a certain way and governed another way. Yeah, you're spot on about that. But that's why. But the MAGA movement alone cannot win these elections. They can't. It's just
Trump alone can't win.
For
these people,
for sure he can't. I mean, and I'm not saying that as a criticism. It's just a fact. I mean, when you look at the recipe, the formula for Trump winning in such a decisive way, it was a synergy. It was people use that phrase, expanding the tent. It was appealing to people. It's true. It was people understanding what conservatism means. Wait a minute, maybe I have some conservative values, maybe not all of them. And if you looked at the convention and saw all the speakers talk about, I mean, would those speakers still come back? Well, Hulk Hogan has passed on, but I mean, aside from Saulo's hero, I mean, so would those speakers come back? I don't know. Would you?
They wouldn't come back.
When you talk about the coalition,
not like that.
I mean, or Rogan, and these are not
Tucker.
political. I mean, I'm just talking about everything. When you talk about a coalition, we're splintered on our side. We're splintered. I mean, I don't know if I guess you consider Tucker on the conservative side. You consider Candace, regardless of how wacky she's been lately, on that side. You look at all these people, even people like Dave Smith, who, I mean, he's not a big influencer, but he's big enough. He's in the mix. And he supported a lot of Trump on a lot of Trump's issues. All I'm saying is you have this splintering, and then you have people quiet again. The people that were not ashamed to say I'm with Trump and to do the dance and all that other stuff, they're not. All that stuff matters. All those little things, those little wins, those little cuts. They add up, because you're bleeding. You're bleeding out slowly versus an artery. I'm not saying there's been an artery severed, but there's a bunch of cuts, and you still lose blood. You lose blood, and so that's all. I mean, again, it's all it's all directed towards the midterms, and this war. I just want Trump needs to gain credibility by clear objectives. One thing he has said is no nuclear Iran. Got it, but it seems like the objective is shifting a little bit, and that happens when did they strategize on the Strait of Hormuz? Was that contemplated?
Oh, it had to have been.
I hope so.
Well, the only reason I know it had to have been.
Okay.
Really. because I hear this in the media that Trump didn't foresee this.
Yeah, I've
and
heard that
total
too.
incompetence from Hexagon. And I just want to point out that it's an impossibility. Why? Because Iran has been claiming that they're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz for literally 47 years. They've done it in the past. It is physically impossible unless you argue that every single person in the administration is completely lobotomized and they have no ability to retain any information about anything.
Well,
So
do
it's
you see
nuts.
evidence that was contemplated?
Well, I do.
Okay, what is that? Because it's a serious question. I mean, I'm asking.
That it was contemplated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've talked about it in previous discourse.
No, but what actions do you see that it was contemplated?
Trump's on tape talking about the Strait of Hormuz being closed for 30 years. So Trump knew that if there was any kind of conflict, but he said that it was worth. See, the problem is we haven't gone to war because of the infamous closure of the Strait of Hormuz. But Trump has said, yeah, I got it. But he's been talking about this for 30 or 40 years. And he's been saying, look, it's worth the risk of getting in there and neutralizing this threat. And so it's impossible that they didn't know that. They've all been talking about it. We all know that. And so now that it's happened, what do we do about it? The challenge of the Strait of Hormuz, and it's just geography, brother. We've talked about that here. There's other critical straits across the world, but I would say the Strait of Hormuz is probably the most consequential because there's no workaround. Like the Suez Canal, there's a workaround. English Channel, there might be,
See, I guess
but not here.
When I talk about
what do we do
contemplation-
about it is the issue.
Well, I mean, for me, contemplation, and you don't have the time that Saudi has had, but then in the 80s, Saudi Arabia built a pipeline, right? Because they didn't want to rely on Iran, right? I mean, so that to me is true contemplation. Now, I'm not saying you have the time to do that, but I'm just saying when you contemplate something, you have a legitimate plan B. Not like I thought about it, but I didn't do anything about it. Well, then you didn't. I mean, then you thought about it. You didn't really contemplate and play out the effects. I mean, am I correct about the 80s? It said that Saudi has that pipeline. So
right,
so
but remember, but Saudi Arabia doesn't border. It doesn't border the Persian Gulf.
Right.
There's, as you probably know from geography, there's the Saudi Arabian Horn, and Saudi Arabia is in the center of that body. And it's along the coast that you have the various other Gulf states. So Saudi Arabia doesn't actually directly border the Persian Gulf. And so the need for that access isn't as consequential as it is for UAE and for Oman and for Kuwait and for Iraq and so forth. Your point is valid that what have you physically done to sort of prepare for that?
That's all I'm
and so
saying.
I want to point out that as an energy interest, the United States has been very disincentivized from doing that because again, we don't really get that oil.
I know, but it's a global oil market, and it's affected us. Now, again, to that article's point, to our point earlier when we opened up the show, I mean, has it really? I mean, we're not anywhere close to even under Biden or when Obama was in office. But people have short-term memory.
You're parked on perception right now.
Because it affects the votes.
Yeah, sure.
That's why. I mean, it's not that I want to live in perception, but perception is reality
what
for
it
most
is,
people, and we got to deal with it or we're going to lose. I mean, so that's all I'm saying. And when I talk about contemplation, I'm just saying, okay, so let me ask you this: does Iran look like that they're? I mean, Trump says they're tough negotiators. Now, I know that's he compliments someone before he slits their throat and all that other shit, and that's like mafia moves. I'm good with that. It's fine. They're tough negotiators. They're bad fighters, but they're tough negotiators. I quit trying to figure out
The dick
Trump.
factor does come in handy once in a while.
It does, absolutely. But every strength taken to an extreme is a weakness, right?
That's right.
So the Mueller statement was classless, but I like when he talks shit when he's in a fight. I mean, I just do. I'm just being honest with you, right? I mean, so you got to take the good with the bad. But all of this.
No, I'm not kidding. I have a very liberal friend, and he has even admitted it himself. He hates Trump, but he's glad Trump is in there when the fight is,
I like it when he
tip
talks.
top.
I do. I mean, I do. Look, it's an important
thug
part
mentality.
of the game. Well, no, it's part of the game. And he talks with confidence, and I like that.
Yeah.
You know, and just Rubio's exceptional, and Rubio's just doing a phenomenal job. Look, if this thing ends right, Rubio's the next president. Am I wrong? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if this thing ends right, I mean, Rubio's the next president, and I'm all on board with that. But
So people want to know what's going on.
Well, then let's talk about that.
Let's talk about what's going on because I think it's fascinating, and I happen to believe that it's positive, regardless of Nico's valid assessment that perception's sort of slipping away here into negative territory. I think what's happening is very important and very effective right now. I think basically what's happening, two things. On the Strait of Hormuz is that the reality is that even though Iran has been able to hit tankers and hit traffic coming in and out of the Strait of Hormuz, which has really been sort of the albatross that they've hung around everybody's neck for 47 years, that capability has been demonstrably deterred because Iran was able to do this through air assets. They no longer have an air force. They were able to do this through naval assets. They no longer have a navy.
Well, they say that but the major boats that are
Yes.
can get us, that we have to be are not destroyed yet. Those little mini boats that can maneuver in that small area,
and they're down to like 5. So
Okay.
those aren't. I thought you were gonna say something else because the issue remains a shit ton of mines that they've placed, and they've had lots of time. Hey, thank you. And Trump's been bitching about this for a long time. Thank you so much for not doing anything about the Strait of Hormuz, because what has Iran been doing for the last 47 years? They've been planting mines. And where have they planted most of those mines? They've been planting them along the coast of our allies. So the Strait of Hormuz, on the east side, you've got all of it's along Iran. And on the west side, you've got a boatload of oil-producing countries, many of which are allies to the United States. A lot of the mines are parked there. So what do tankers do? They don't want to go there, so they cozy up along the Iranian side. Well, now they're within reach. And so So now all I'm suggesting is that in the last 4.5 weeks, we've obliterated 2 of the major prongs of attack. So what remains are those mines, number 1, which are not close to the Iranian side. And 2, Nico, there are some portable missile deployment stations inside Iran that are still active, but they're greatly deterred. So what are we doing in the meantime?
Well, see, this to me is an argument why we have to fulfill the objective of them not even anywhere close to the ability to get a nuclear weapon. Because this shows you, so somebody was asleep, not even on the Iran side, they're planting mines on the other side, and everybody's just kind of like, well, we don't want to start any trouble.
Yeah.
And then now they have control. Can you imagine if these sons of bitches had a nuclear weapon? I mean, and unless you want to call, I'm not a Witkoff apologist. I mean, I don't know if he's a weirdo or not. I mean, let the evidence play out the way it plays out. But unless you want to call him just an outright liar, which there's no evidence that he's lying about this. I mean, they had 60% enriched uranium. There's no need for more than 20% enriched uranium. We told them, we'll guarantee you have enough nuclear uranium to do whatever you need to do to operate, meaning not for bombs,
Right.
but for society, for whatever you need for your. And we guaranteed that to them. I mean, and they said no. So they had enough to make nuclear weapons. Now we know, because of that attack close to the Diego Garcia base, that okay, somebody was right about something.
That's right.
They have them in a 2,500 mile away shot, and maybe can reach even further. Europe's in trouble, and then Europe's asleep at the wheel here again. All I'm saying is, I've always been on board with Iran not having a nuclear weapon, because I understand the ideology. Everybody wants to play nice, and well, maybe they really don't mean it. It's like Charlie, you don't want to kill me, do you? Of course I don't want to kill you yet. And it's okay. Well, he really doesn't want to kill me.
You understand the ideology, not because you're half Lebanese.
No, that's right. Because we're on the
because
Christian
it's
side.
common sense,
Yes,
right? I mean,
yes.
It's run by a religious, and I've heard people
Did
say,
you call me a camel jock?
No, stop.
but it's true though. But because we've studied, I understand the ideology and what their objective is, and then you have evidence out there. I mean, and so I'm telling you, this whole, that ideology, and I'm not saying every Islamic person has that ideology, but I'm telling you, people are starting to wake up. But is it too late in certain areas of this world? I mean, this is real. Iran is a real threat. I don't care what anybody else. I mean, I do care, but I don't think they've given me objective evidence to come off the position that what imminent threat were we under? Well, I mean, you have people that have been talking.
If anything, it's only been reinforced. Here
I
in the
think
last
so
week
with
and a
this
half.
attack on
right.
Diego Garcia base. I think it has been reinforced.
And just so people know what you're talking about, Diego Garcia base is it's an island, and it's an island where the United States has naval assets, that's right, military assets, and so it's largely been understood to be way beyond the range of Iran's sort of regional missiles that can now attack bases, for instance, in Qatar. And it's just been understood that these are short-range ballistic missile capabilities. Yeah, they have thousands of them, but there's a limit to about 1,250 miles. Here you have Iran, all of a sudden, the last week and a half, launching 2 missiles.
How far?
And those missiles have come within 2,000 miles, which is just a hair short of Diego Garcia. So they actually do have some ICBM capabilities, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Now, granted, they fell apart, but shit, that's a little too close for comfort. And so who's been bitching about this? I mean, I don't want to name names, but his initials are Bibi Netanyahu. I mean, he's been talking about this for decades, Salo. And so he's not the only one. There's plenty of people who've been bitching about it. So Netanyahu turns to Europe and say, so this isn't your fight because?
No.
Legitimate question. Yeah. And so to your point, these are issues that have been argued about. There's been evidence that's been presented. It's been blown off by the UN. At some point, you can't afford to blow them off because you're talking about a matter of life and limb. And we are here today. And so I think from a MAGA perspective, from an electoral perspective, Nico, people are saying, yeah, we get it. We understand that this is truly an existential danger. It is truly imminent. So morally, I think even electorally, people are still with the president on Iran.
Who? You mean MAGA?
MAGA for sure, because that's been the claim they've been peeling off. And I think there's enough independents that are there, but there's no question that independents have peeled off.
Yes, man.
And even the few Democrats that they've peeled off.
Well, we didn't have a bunch in the first place.
We didn't have a bunch to begin with.
But I guess don't forget your thought, Karen. But
Okay.
What other example? And I mean, and I don't want. I mean, I've read about. Yes, I did read about Germany and Russia revolution. You know, after the 4-year war, or if they were been in war for 4 years. But when have we ever seen where you bomb your way into people rising up? I just don't know if that was the right. Was that a good strategy? Who advised them on that? That they were going to bomb the shit out of them, and the people are going to rise up and take over and have a regime collapse, which ultimately leads to regime the change. And again, there's a lot of stuff we're not seeing the scoreboard, and we don't know the chessboard that they're looking at. But I mean, that seemed
there are some
that's how it was pitched to us.
Fair enough, but there are some important historical nuances here. And then the big difference here is our ability to precision bomb. Iran is a massive effing place.
Yep.
And so we have had the ability, and it's true. I mean, how many reports, because you know the New York Times will be out there, and Washington Post too, they'd be out there just reading the lists of killed civilians in Iran by the Allies. You know that would be happening right now. Peep, because it's not happening.
Sure.
You've had a massive 5-week bombing campaign that has been entirely surgical. And I've lost track. I don't know about you guys. I've lost track of the number of regime people that have been wiped out every day. Like it was, what was it, Tarfasi or Tarasi this week? He's the head. He's actually the naval head. He's the guy that's been responsible for closing the Strait of Hormuz. Right. There's the message. You try to do that again, we'll cut your head off. So we've been very surgically competent and effective, not just on our bombing runs, but decapitating the regime. That's unprecedented because of our abilities right now. You can't compare that to what we were able to do 20 or 30 years ago, I would say. Number one. Number two, Iran has a long history of people rising up. I mean, it's happened multiple times. So it's not like, I wonder if they'll...
Since when?
From the very beginning. Now, it hasn't been effective.
Well, I mean, it's not for 47 years. It hasn't worked. I mean...
I know, brother, because there hasn't been any external pressure. And what I'm saying is that...
What means do they have to rise up?
Well, let's look at the one that happened in January.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about 40,000 people dead, but it was more than that rose up. It was a significant number of people that rose up. What means they have? I mean, they took to the streets. They don't have the means to defend themselves, but because there also hasn't been any deterrent pressure like there has now. So the question is, at what point will the people feel confident enough to rise up again? That's the issue. And I've been bitching in here for 4 weeks now that once Karg Island is controlled, and once the regime no longer has access to currency, they will wither on the vine, and they will die from the inside out. And so I think that's the impetus that we need, frankly, for people to truly rise up again. And you're going to see mass defections. It's already happening, at least according to reports from the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, literally defecting. And so I think we're just waiting. We're literally just waiting for that tipping point. The question is, what's these negotiations about? Because there are negotiations going on right now. And
to do what?
There have been negotiations with Iran that are for a ceasefire. You might have read.
Yeah, I know, to open
and
up
that's been
the strait,
blown off.
To open up the strait.
Open up the strait.
But then you're giving them, once again, you're ceding power to them, and you're acknowledging that they're formidable.
I think there's something else going on, and maybe I'm dead wrong here.
I mean, I'm just asking the question from the perception. I mean, if you're sitting back and saying, yes, we've bombed the shit out of you, we beat you up, but you're still not out, and now want to negotiate. Think of a fight. You're in a 12-round fight. You're beating the shit out of somebody for the first 9 rounds, 8 rounds.
Yeah.
I mean, bad.
Sure.
And then you say, all right, let's talk about negotiating to not have to fight the last 4 rounds. Why? I beat the shit out of you for 8 rounds. I'm just going to finish the fight. Yeah. And maybe that's too simplistic. I'm just saying, I think you cede control or some power to Iran if you have to sit there and negotiate with them. I don't know. I mean, this Strait of Hormuz is going to be an issue.
And maybe I'm wrong, but Rubio and Trump, I think, perceive the Iranian regime at this point as sort of like Monty Python's Black Knight. And you're the one that reminded me of that years ago. I went back and laughed my ass off.
Which one?
You know, where he cut off one arm, and he cuts off another arm. He cuts off his legs. He's on the ground saying, "I'm going to get you. I shall never surrender."
Yeah.
And that's kind of the person.
Got to find that.
And you said a couple of weeks ago, you got to give it to Iran. They're literally going to go down to the last pinky.
Oh.
And so I think Trump and Rubio are of the persuasion that that's kind of where they are. And at this point, there are sympathies inside the regime for stopping this war. And so here's where I think we are. You're never going to end up with a liberal democracy in Iran. For those of you who are waiting for the Shah to show up, he's not going to show up. Neither is his son. That's never going to happen. Whatever government you had in Iran, it's not going to be a wonderful government, but it's going to be a devil we can live with. We're getting rid of the devils we can't live with to replace them with a devil that we can live with. And I think this attrition has been helpful. And that's what we're kind of holding off on here. And that's where these negotiations are going. It seems to me, based on the rhetoric and based on the positioning. And I don't know, Nico, that we are like 1,000 years away from that. I mean, I think we're a lot closer to that because we've been doing carrot and stick, carrot and stick, carrot and stick. And now it's literally, it's a game of attrition. Who the hell's left? And so we're banking on that individual, kind of like the guy in Syria who comes along and says, okay, I'm not a complete fucking asshole. I will work with you. And if that happens, and the concession is that the Strait of Hormuz opens up, man, this will be a huge win. We're 7 months from the midterms, and I think it's statistically totally probable that that can happen. So we don't do happy talk on the show.
No.
We talk about the bad news, but we don't want to be like, oh my gosh, it's over. Well, it's not over.
I want a path. No. If there's a legitimate path, then you find the path, you talk about it.
But we don't do happy talk.
We got to implement the path. And it takes Republican leadership to do that. And look, we don't have the Republican leadership. And I don't think we have the Republican synergy. And that needs to be addressed. How do you address it? I don't have the answer. I go back weeks ago and I kept telling you about Laura Trump and all them with the Republican National Party and how it's not the same. We don't have that same synergy. That's why I talk about these coalitions. And I'm not saying we can't get it back because people, they feel better in about a month and we're going to get it back.
That's how it works. It's crazy,
but it's true. Karen, I cut you off.
No. I had many thoughts, but with like the Monty Python movie, with only the pinky left, do you think Iran would ever, even with the one pinky left, surrender or say uncle? Even if that's what Trump and Rubio are waiting for, are they ever going to say it? I don't think that they are.
Well, some of this, we've forced them to it, right? The nuclear capabilities are gone. We know that
they said that the first time. I don't know.
Well, let's define gone.
Okay.
So they don't have the ability to to enrich uranium anymore. Now, what happened to that material? Well, the answer is that it's buried underneath thousands of tons of rubble. And so is it conceivable that it could be obtained? And I think Trump has spoken on this, that it's a non-negotiable that we are not going to get our hands on that. So part of this, but Iran doesn't have the ability to get down there. Somebody does.
Right.
And so that's part of a closure on this. Putting a bow on this is making sure we get our hands ultimately in retrieving that. So that's number one. We've achieved the nuclear aspect, it seems to me. The second is, have we deterred or have we destroyed? Legit question. Iran's ability to attack its neighbors. Well, not totally. So that needs to be something that Trump's not negotiating on that. So those two are non-negotiables. And so the question is Iran willing to pull away from that? And again, by the latest reports, there are devils inside the regime that we've identified that are willing to make concessions on that. We're just waiting for that balance of power to tip.
But then this is not a topic for today, but it irritated me when I heard reports that how Europe has not stepped up.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
that's so
crazy. And I heard Rubio talking about it briefly, and I mean, but they're on a suicide mission anyway.
Yeah.
For them to they've given over their culture, many parts of Europe, but that's that fatigue. You know, that what do they say? Fatigue makes that gym I used to train in, and fatigue makes cowards of men.
But explain that to me, and with the analogy with Europe, because these people haven't done shit. What the hell are they tired of?
Well, think about who's in control of these countries. What's the UK going to do? They're controlled by an Islamic
Yeah, they're a bunch
ideology.
of socialist hacks, right?
No, but I mean, but more so than that, the social attacks have led in this Islamic ideology.
Sure.
I mean, look how many mayors run. I mean, Muhammad is the most popular name in the UK for babies.
Yep.
I mean, that's not an
It's
English
done.
culture. I mean, that's different culture. I mean, I would say the same thing if Diego or Jose was the name of babies. Well, then you've lost your culture. I mean, you've lost your ethnicity, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're English, and that's fine. God created all people and all ethnicities. Celebrate it. You don't have to lose your ethnicity to be welcoming to people.
What you have is a marriage of two cults with a common enemy.
Socialism
right.
and
Right.
Islamism.
Yeah,
Yes,
there's something
yes, I
that
agree.
socialist communists
But who
love
wins?
more than survival, and that's power.
Okay,
that's the problem with drugs.
But let me ask you a question. I already know the answer you're going to say. So let's say the socialists and the Islamists get rid of the conservative or the Christian or whatever, what else, or the Constitution Republic or whatever, the freedom person. Who wins?
Islam.
That's not even close.
Yeah,
Yes,
Islam.
Of course, it's Islam wins.
Yeah,
that's
without
right.
a doubt.
Of course, and there's no love lost. That's the interesting thing. People, they're open about it. They articulate that very, very clearly. So I hear what you're saying, but it strikes to me it's angering and frustrating, and no wonder Trump has been frustrated about it. Speaking of frustration, Trump has weighed in on the issues that you just brought up. Trump has been just flipping out on his own sort of GOP in the Senate about this.
That makes me wonder,
he's been
if we're
furious.
losing the democracy and we're losing the war, then why are our guys hiding Easter eggs and on Easter break? I mean,
boy.
does that make you?
Yeah.
Everybody went home for Easter break.
The Senate
Senate-
took a 2-week recess, and they won't be back until April 13th after passing a ridiculous bill. Now, it's not the end of the world.
Well, I thought Mike Johnson said that bill's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, right,
You talking about the DHS bill?
right. And
He
that
said it's dead in the water.
right. So it is dead in water because, but that's the criticism. So what are we going to do about it? So this has been going on for 43 days, this shutdown. And people who think that Chuck Schumer got everything he wanted, it's nonsense. Chuck Schumer went out there and said that they got the Republicans to cave. It's complete bullshit. He didn't. The problem is the Republicans look like a bunch of, there's not a nice way to say it, just total wussies in the last 43 days, because what they did is they allowed a bill, it's an appropriations bill, to basically pass without
Not funding
funding
ICE.
for ICE and CBP. Now they're falling back, and this is what I think is hilarious, and it's a tragedy. So John Thune gets out and says, just so everybody knows, they're still funding for ICE thanks to President Trump and basically the passage of the one big beautiful. Yeah, but it's nothing you did.
Yeah.
Trump did that. You guys had 43 days to at least make the Democrats come out in public and stand up there in public and argue their positions.
Why didn't he? Well, I mean, there's got to be a why. Why is he that much of a wuss? Is he that weak? Is he bought off? Why? Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, is he not a wartime consigliere? What is his? I mean, what is the issue? Because cowardice irritates the shit out of me.
Right.
I can't stand it. I mean, it's. I think it's horrible. I've always said this for years. You have the intentional person that's trying to screw you over. You have the weak person that's not trying to screw you over, but they're so fucking weak that they'll let the intentional person screw you over. What's the result? You still get screwed over. Yeah, but I didn't want it to happen. Yeah, but you're so weak that you didn't stop it. So what's the issue? I can't stand cowardice and passivism. What's the issue?
To be crystal clear, this Department of Homeland Security funding bill, what the Democrats were requesting were that we would basically strip ICE of its law enforcement operations. That ICE would no longer, for instance, in fact, they'd literally go against court precedent. ICE is able to operate warrants that are administrative warrants. And the Democrats were requesting that we would change that from administrative warrants to judicial warrants. Every time they did any kind of arrest of an illegal alien for which they had intelligence of, let's say in a home, that they would literally have to go to a judge every single time, which is untenable. That's actually come before the courts. It's been denied. So there's an administrative warrant requirement, and the Democrats were trying to change that. A. B. They were trying to get ICE to basically go unmasked, which is
Hilarious.
not going to happen because of doxing threats on their families, and so forth. there were a number of other just crazy, crazy radical stuff that the Republicans refused to cave on legitimately. Okay, and in order to try to get the Republicans to cave, they were trying to lead a public relations campaign. What do? They punish people at airports. They because part of what they denied funding was, in that Department of Homeland Security funding, is for TSA and for FEMA and for the Coast Guard, basically hurting the security of the average American. So you see these long-ass lines. So what caused the Democrats finally to cave? It wasn't because of Thune's brilliance. It's because Trump shows up and says, fine.
ICE will come in.
Yeah, I'm going to sign an executive order. So you're right. That's the first step. He sent ICE into airports for an immediate reprieve. And then you started seeing all these reports of how nice ICE is and how these lines are disappearing. So the Democrats are looking like feckless assholes.
Yeah.
Then Trump comes in and says, but it still doesn't solve the problem, Nico, that TSA agents aren't getting paid. And they're now calling in sick in droves. So Trump says, I'm going to sign an executive order. I'm going to take discretionary funding from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and I'm going to get those TSA agents paid. So instructed Mullen at DHS to do that. So now TSA agents are getting paid.
Why would Thune fold then? So if you got that leverage, then why do you fold?
Exactly right.
Yes,
and
man.
this is so. I'm just trying to, because people are wondering, why is Johnson? Because Johnson's not the kind of guy to come out. He kind of keeps his powder dry, and there's just been an outcry against it. Now,
what?
Against Thune, because they passed this bill, acted like it was a victory, but it was victory somebody else had won in the One Big Beautiful Act, and then it disappeared for 2 weeks. And here's my cynical ass. When you disappear for 2 weeks, the president can technically step in and make recess appointments.
So is that going to happen?
No, but let me tell you what's happening, and it's the first time I've ever seen it. Maybe Nico knows an exception. It's the first time I've ever seen it. What are they doing? They're doing pro forma votes. They're going to show up just enough to keep the president from making recess appointments. They won't say that's what it is, but Trump's just chomping at the bit to step into that recess appointment and get a bunch of his judicial nominees through. But they're going to step in just enough in the next 2 weeks. The Senate.
But led by whom? Who makes that decision for them to step in?
Thune.
So why is he working against the president then?
Okay. All right. Well, let's park there for a little bit. You tell. I'm not everything's the rhinos problem. You and me, I rarely mention rhinos. But this is a legitimate issue that the electorate has. And people are watching. This is the kind of shit that's going to keep people in the midterms from saying, what the fuck is the point? I mean, seriously? This guy's literally working against the president of the United States.
We're past the primary already, so people are going to stay home, so the midterms are screwed.
Okay, so I think what's happening in the special elections is much less. I don't care what the Democrats are saying. Let them say what they want. Affordability. Anybody with a brain knows that Democrats can't offer solutions on affordability. That's not what's happening. Time and time again, with your frustration on special elections with Republicans using them, the Republicans are not showing up. It's not that Republicans are showing up. They're not. They're not showing up at all. They're basically saying, fuck this. Because they're sending a warning shot across the bow. Get our shit done, or you can't count on us in the midterms. That's what I think is going on. And so, to your point, we need to start paying attention. And my frustration is that the Senate GOP is dicking around. This is not funny. And so what explains it? Are we okay accepting the fact that there's enough people in the Senate GOP that share the same values as Democrats? And again, the only difference is that they don't like taxation as much. That's my argument. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I see this shit over and over and over again. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Unless there's just still too many of these individuals who want to play footsie with people that at the end of the day, they share a moral hegemony with. So we got a problem. And that's why Trump showed up on Trump says,
what's the solution?
Well, here's what Trump wrote. When is enough for our Republican senators? There comes a time when you must do what you should have been doing a long time ago, and that is terminate the filibuster. What Trump is saying is these people cannot be negotiated with. They can't. Get over this fear of nuking the filibuster. Get over it. Because the filibuster, FYI for history buffs, the very first people to nuke the filibuster were the Democrats back in 2013 under Harry Reid. Why?
Judicial appointments.
Amen. And then
it bit them in the ass. It bit them in the ass. Schumer warned, not Schumer, what's his face? McConnell warned them, it's going to come back and bite you and sooner than you think, and it did. So the people, and I'm
Well,
not
continue that thread, brother.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying
It's already done. That's my point.
I get that, but the bottom line is you have to weigh it out. I get the argument. I'm not saying I'm on either side yet. I'm just trying to play it out in my head.
Go ahead.
I mean, so we get rid of the filibuster,
Go ahead.
and if you think that we're going to keep majority in November, then I would love to be wrong, and I think that you are. I would be overjoyed.
We are going to keep majority to the extent that we will do what needs to be done to execute the agenda of the voters. And what I'm saying is, I'm going back to your original point. And maybe you think I've wandered off, but I'm not. People came to the ballot box for a reason, on an agenda, and on a perceived conviction that agenda was going to be fought for. That hasn't happened. Trump's lone man out there. Say what you want about Trump. He's the only one who's been consistent on his agenda. Trump's not the problem, and he has problems. I admit him. The majority of the problem is that the fuckers that we have, that we brought in to fight the fight, aren't fighting. In fact, they're siding with the opposition. And that's what I'm worried about. If you kept that passion up and that commitment, you should see the same shit in the midterms. Why wouldn't people come out to the ballot box?
I get the analysis. You're right, but if that's not happening, then we lose the midterm.
Brother, I'm tracking with you.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. And so if all I'm saying is the filibuster. If we think we're going to lose the midterms, then what is the safeguard?
Well,
what's the safeguard?
Let me go back to what you said about the filibuster, because you're like, they're going to do. Yeah, right. But because they've already said they are.
I know that, bro.
And they've already promised it. It's a promise. It's not a threat. It's a promise. The filibuster's gone as soon as Democrats get in there. And so but this is Thune's argument. Well, we need to be tempered. We got to be tempered. Fuck you with the tempered. They've told you what they're going to do, for goodness sakes. And so you're not willing to fall on the sword? If you were falling on let me give you an example. If you were nuking the filibuster over your own pet issues, I could see that would be a problem. But if you're nuking the filibuster with people that are essentially legislative terrorists, okay, and you are not fighting for the agenda of your people, when is it a good time to do that?
So, but my point is this. Not my point. My question is this. So if we're saying the filibuster is going to be nuked by the Dems, and then we nuke the filibuster because it hasn't happened yet, and then we think we're going to lose the midterms, then we're handing over the Democrats just an open check, carte blanche to do whatever the hell they want. I'm just trying to play this out. That's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I would not say if then as you've positioned it. I get the analysis.
What do you mean? What part?
In other words, we're not going to lose the midterms. Nuking the filibuster is not
You don't
going
think we're going to lose in the midterms?
Oh, I'm not prepared to say that we're going to.
I'm not yet. I'm just saying, but we agree it's looking like.
I think if we shore up the things that we've talked about here in the last hour, I think we have a very good shot at winning the midterms.
I hope so, brother.
Only because I'm trying to be faithful to the analysis that X people came out across multiple demographies to vote for Trump and the GOP in November of 24. To your point, which is the singular point. How do we get that kind of enthusiasm and intensity to show up again in the midterms?
But how many people came out to really vote for that agenda? I want to know, because that's important to me. How many people voted for Trump because they're diehard about the agenda, and how many people did the go along to get along because it was cool to vote for Trump now and Republicans?
Oh, I mean,
I don't know if we have data on that. Because you know that there's a portion of the support with young people and other people. He's doing all these podcasts, it's cool. People are cheering at him at football games, or cheering at him for UFC fights. He's a cool guy. Everybody's doing the Trump dance. So there's a cool factor that Trump.
Don't forget about who he was running against.
Well, yeah, I mean, so like people said, well, they didn't vote for Biden. They voted against Trump. Well, a lot of people voted against Harris.
Let's go back to the singular issue, and the singular issue at the time, and the economy mattered, but the border. And you said it.
I said it. I was
the closest I've ever come to being a one-issue voter.
Right.
You weren't alone.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, and you're not some Kool-Aid drinking Trump supporter.
No.
So, and you said that. So my point is that's a shared sentiment across multiple demographies. Interesting that the issues that we're sitting here talking about, DHS funding, ICE, CBP, SAVE Act, all of these in some way, shape, manner, or form tie right into that anti-illegal immigration agenda.
Yeah, I know, but there's difference between ICE issue and the border issue. People have amnesia, and the border's closed. What my concern is that there's a disconnect, Karen. Yeah, I don't know if you think
I
if you get where I'm
agree.
going with this. My concern, just from I'm just trying to be a strategist. There's a disconnect. People aren't correlating ICE. You go to someone and say, "Hey, asshole, you voted for this. I didn't vote for that. I voted for that, and we accomplished that. Let's be a little easy on this."
Okay. But let's continue.
And I don't know if we have the data on that. I'm
No,
not
because
saying that there
people
is.
weren't just pissed off about the border. They were pissed off about the fact that everybody knew that we had tens of millions of people that came over.
I agree.
Now they're here. And it's the damage that they're inflicting. And people were aware of that coming in November 24. It's the damage that they're inflicting on the interior, drawing from resources that belong to Americans, schools, clinics, hospitals, other social services. I mean, employment. I mean, it's a massive deflation net. And if you don't believe me, go to fairus.org. They do a great job. This is the Federation for American Immigration Reform. And look at their numbers. It's broken down. It is a net drag on the American economy. And I'm not even getting into the crime aspect. People wanted something to be done, Nico, about the interior problem.
But how they want it to be done is different too. And I'm not. I get that there's going to be some blips in the ICE, implementation of it. But how else were you going to do it? I get that.
He can't finish a show without setting me up for the due process stuff.
No. No, that's always there for you. No. That's always there for you. I'm just, you know me, brother. In the end, I want to win. That's it. And that's not at all costs. It's not immorally. It's not unethically. But I want to win. And we got to be, shrewd as a snake, innocent as a dove. And we're all talking about whatever poll you want to look at. Trump has lost this synergy, no doubt about it. He's lost control over his own party. Because they've got a bunch of dumb
the synergy across multiple demographies that showed up to support him in November of 24.
That's what I mean, the synergy.
Yeah,
thank you for defining that for me. Yes, that's exactly what I was referring to. He's lost that. And you need that to win. You're not going to get the same number of votes in the midterm as you do on a presidential election. You just don't.
Right.
And so you have that. So there are some people going to stay home. Who stays home? What stays home? I don't know. So these special election losses could be a blessing in disguise if somebody wakes the hell up. If they don't, well, then it's just a foreshadowing of what's going to happen in November. And if it happens in November, that everything that everyone's worried about, filibuster going away, all this other shit, open borders again, then Trump under investigation, Trump getting impeached, all that bullshit, his agenda comes to a halt. Are we agreed?
Yeah, I mean, okay. I can't disagree.
So everything that I criticize, observe, advise, whatever, opinionize, if that's even a word, is geared towards not 28. As much as I want Rubio to be president, I'm not worried about that right now. I'm worried about 26. And those are my thoughts. Those are my questions. Those are my pushbacks. It's all focused on that. That's it. I'm not saying I'm right.
The media was far more successful. The national media was far more successful at launching a psyop, a propaganda campaign against ICE than Republicans were at pushing back on it. What happened in Minneapolis with Renee Good and, again, Alex Preddy, literally separated by 2 weeks, what happened in there was not at all representative of the mass deportation effort across the country. I mean, mass deportations have been going on for months and months and months. And all of a sudden in Minneapolis, a sanctuary city that is rabidly anti-Trump and rabidly anti-ICE, they chose to make that the whole. That's the issue. And the Republicans did a dipshittery of a job, if that's even a word, at pushing back. And so it was propaganda. To your point, it's the perception that this is all of ICE everywhere, all the time. And then you have Joe Rogan talking about, well, Gestapo, and is this how it's going to be? And the papers, and can I see your papers? I'm like, what? Even Joe Rogan, who usually steps back and says, okay, he gets opinion from X, Y, and Z. And I thought, holy crap, what we lost, it's not that people don't want mass deportations. And it's not even that people had a problem with how ICE was doing their job. It's how it was positioned and how shitty a job we did at pushing back on it. Yep. That's my preference. Even Mark Wayne Mullen, it occurs to me, and this bothered me a lot. I never got a chance to call Nico and bitch because I would have been an event session. But Mark Wayne Mullen apologized as a senator. The new DHS head, which is why I'm on the fence about him, apologized for calling Alex Preddy deranged after he was killed.
I didn't hear that.
And I thought to myself, exactly what is wrong with the word deranged? A deranged person is an irrational person that is out of control. And I'd like to know how that doesn't fit what he did that day. 2 weeks before, Renee Good had done essentially the same thing, except with her vehicle, which was deranged. To insert yourself in the middle of a law enforcement operation that is statutorily and constitutionally protected, by the way, you step in there, you think that that's a rational decision, and then later, 2 weeks later, walks into the same operation because they're altercating with a woman, if you remember. Nico's analyzed this better than I have, so here, and then she falls to the ground, so he inserts himself to get in their way. Do I think he should have been killed? No. But the point is, that's not a rational move. So the word deranged, so he apologizes for that. And he said he would not use the word deranged once he's appointed. I'm telling you, people don't like that because it shows a lack of clarity on these issues that they came to the ballot box for. And you're right, it wasn't
irrational to me. I understand your definition. Irrational and deranged are different to me. I mean, I don't think the pretty guy and the girl in the car are the same. She had a deadly weapon. He didn't. I mean, a car's a deadly weapon.
I'm just trying to stick to the definition of the word deranged and how he felt that it was necessary to come and apologize and say he would not use such terms.
But I don't think he was deranged. I don't think the guy was deranged. I think he was. I mean, people get charged with interference to the duties of a public servant all the time. They're not all deranged. I mean, they're made.
He was kind of deranged, though. He jumped in the middle of
the literal definition, and please check me out on this, but the literal definition of deranged is somebody who is acting irrationally in an out-of-control manner.
And mental retardation is a word, too, but it's been bastardized, and there's a lot of words that have been commandeered and taken over. And so I'm just saying, I get the strict definition. Just say irrational, stupid, whatever. I mean, we're not here to talk about those two people. All I'm saying is we're back focusing on DHS, the midterms.
I have a question.
The funding, yes, please.
So can the actual candidate have something to do with it? I'm still like blown away about that special election. Is it even possible that it was the candidate that represented the Republicans, because I don't know who it was, that made that Democrat win? I mean, and who is it that we're talking about when it comes to the candidates? I mean, we all know in Texas,
I'm sorry. Look what you want to talk about Texas. Look what happened with John. Look what happened with John Cornyn. A plurality. I mean, he barely made it. He barely made it.
Wait, what?
John Cornyn.
On what?
On this last
the primary. Yeah. But I'm talking about the general. I mean, this is why that Tallarico dude.
Yeah, but that's in every single state. That's why it's so.
They're being strategic on the people they're choosing, and we're not, in my opinion. I mean, we had a slew of great people that they were running, and they were more approachable, and they were articulate, and they were tough when they needed to be tough. They were reasonable, logical. I mean, I felt, and just that's why this Tallarico guy and George and I and Marquise and Pastor Flowers, we had a discussion on R-rated Christianity about him, but from the biblical perspective, of course, it was.
But still, if it's a bunch of lies, how can you trust him as a candidate?
But if you don't know it's a lie, then you don't know. Do you think everybody knew that Bernie Madoff was lying? He sounded believable. What did Shakespeare say? The Prince of Darkness is a gentleman. I mean, he doesn't come with his horns showing his fangs and his claws. I mean, he's a gentleman. Lucifer is good looking. I mean, this is the way it goes. I mean, it's not how you say it. It's what they're saying and then what they do to back it up. That's my concern. Look at Mamdani. Sounded great. Now look, I mean, are people having buyer's remorse? We'll find out in the next election if it's not too late by then, because they're flooded
already having buyer's remorse.
Oh, for sure they are. But what is it going to matter if people don't vote?
No,
that's what it's about.
And then what is it going to matter if Republicans, quote unquote, don't stand up and number one, stand for what they say they believe, and then two, be able to articulate in a way that moves the needle.
I think that's the nugget. I think that's a valid question, Karen. What you're asking, the candidates, of course, absolutely valid. Then there's also the historical aspect, which Republicans have always done a shitty job showing up for special elections and midterms to begin with. That's another issue. I got to step back and I got to say, the polling's starting to reflect some of that. Some of what you're saying, the dynamic of where some of the people in MAGA are kind of pulling away, and that's a problem. I mean, Trump needs that. I mean, a GOP needs that. There's that. Give me a break.
So
we already know
independents. So MAGA's pulling away.
I think I've seen that. I think I've seen a couple of polls where that's the case, and I'm worried about it. Which is why the analysis of what would cause MAGA. Because it's policy, it's values, it's agenda. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to get MAGA to pull off unless MAGA believes that the people they're voting for aren't going to fight for that agenda. That's the deal
But
breaker
then
right
here's
there.
my deal. Then what's the alternative?
I know you're going to go there. I know. So
for me, it's like, okay, I'm pissed off.
I know.
Next primary, let me try to get someone better in there. But you're going to stay home?
Sure.
And you're going to hand over the fort? I mean, or you're just like, I don't like what we're doing. I don't like the decisions.
I sensed that was going to be what you're saying. Do you go with the devil that kills you or the devil that gives you the shits? Yeah. No, I'm with you. I got it. And I don't have an answer to that. But I mean, it's the only analysis, it seemed to me, that made sense. But I believe that there's an opportunity for a huge win. Interestingly, it's accidental. Toon said something, we'll just send it over to the House, and then maybe they can pass it by reconciliation. Next week, we need to get into this because I think that could be a huge win. Remember, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed under budget reconciliation, which is a simple majority, doesn't require a 60 vote. And I think what's really important is if somehow, this could be a huge redeeming factor, if in fact Mike Johnson follows through, they do pass a bill to refund through appropriations and a continuing resolution for 60 days, they fund ICE and CBP, and they also throw in funding for the SAFE Act. In other words, pass the SAFE Act inside budget reconciliation. And the way you do that is by tying, the rules are, you can't just throw everything under budget reconciliation. You can if you can tie your legislation to specific funding priorities. Like if you can show how it directly affects the budget, you can do it. And so the Republicans can do that. They can throw in the SAFE Act, they can throw in some DHS funding, they can throw in lots of really cool things as long as they're able to attach some funding priorities to that. What's going to determine whether this is successful or not? Two things. Is the Senate going to fight for it? Again, number one. And number two, the Senate parliamentarian gets to kind of come in and say, yeah, you can legitimately do that. You can, this is, you're not just playing games here. If you can legitimately tie some budget issues. So we have a couple hurdles to cross, but I think that is a lower hurdle to cross. And it is than trying to get Democrats to negotiate in good faith. So I see a path forward. We're going to learn about it in the next 3 to 4 or 5 days. But Nico, I think there's a huge silver lining here for a massive victory.
God, I hope you're right.
If it can be done under budget reconciliation.
I hope you're not just wishful thinking, brother. I hope you're right.
No, I'm just looking at the tea leaves.
I know, but I mean, how you look at the tea leaves matter. I mean, I know you try to be objective. I get it, but we all have our our leanings, our biases, our our judgments. But I hope you're right. I would love for you to be right. Well, any questions, Karen? I mean, any comments, questions we can respond to?
No, I mean, not really.
Criticisms?
Everybody's, except for Salo, nobody likes him.
Nobody likes Salvo? Why not?
I had to jump in on that bandwagon. What do you
happened?
think? Sorry.
Don't tell him that he likes that. Don't
No,
tell him.
but this is something that's kind of like a sidebar.
I like
and I
sidebar.
wanted to see what you thought of it. Now that we're talking about Cornyn and the
What happened?
candidates
Did
that we
Paxton-
have.
Did Paxton drop out?
No,
No,
not yet.
not
but,
at all.
But,
Not
and
at
I
all.
don't know where Cornyn was when he was asked this by a reporter, but a reporter asked him, will he be running for re-election in 2026? Like, you are going to run, aren't you? And he says, yes. And then he said, God willing. And then after he said that, he said, and maybe you can help me, George, he said, Inshallah. And
Really?
I saw the video.
I saw the video. I saw the video.
And so can you please explain to me what that means and how
God willing,
John,
right? Inshallah means God willing.
Yeah, it does.
I
mean,
know.
So, yeah, but you don't. I mean, look. You
Is
can
that a
speak,
good time to say it that way?
No, of course not. I mean, you can say, look, you meet an Arabic person that's Christian, say Inshallah.
Yes.
But yeah, that's something that more Islamic people say. It sounds like it's a little bit of a appeasement.
Oh, that
who the
was
hell
like,
wants to hear John Cornyn saying Inshallah? I mean, it's just. I saw that video. That was a while ago. It wasn't that long ago.
I just saw it a few days ago, so I don't know, but I mean.
Well, it fell low on my radar because I didn't see it. But look, John Cornyn is not a friend of conservatism. Nico knows I've been bitching about him for years and years and years. I said something that is very uncanny for me, but I'll say it here. The notion of running for office is literally gas-inducing for me. But John Cornyn might actually encourage me to do that. That's how much an enemy of conservatism I think he is. The man cannot be trusted. I think he despises conservatism. I do. I think he despises Paxton, but he despises what Paxton stands for. And Paxton's far from a perfect individual, as we know. But at least Paxton has defined conservative ideals clearly. He's governed clearly by them. You might argue he's actually crossed the line almost to a fault. Fair enough. But you cannot say that Ken Paxton isn't committed to conservatism. You cannot say that. And yet that's all you can say about John Cornyn. The man is a danger to the conservative movement. And I think he epitomizes the very issues we've been analyzing here. He epitomizes why MAGA would stay home.
Damn. So you don't like him?
Is he friends with Thune? That's
telling
what
you,
I want to know.
This guy,
I'm afraid of
George.
him. I'm afraid of him too.
You know when
He is-
when I started really disliking is in the aftermath of the George Floyd situation, and Cornyn's just tripping over himself to get in front of a microphone and say, after the issues that we've seen, it's really sad, that we still let the color of our skin, and he made it about race immediately. I mean, he tripped over himself to color the whole thing, no pun intended, in racial terms. And there is, and even the prosecutors never brought forth any racial charges, nor was he prosecuted on any kind of race-based hate crime. But Cornyn's right out there. I mean, you can just see in situations like that, what their true cloth is made of. And this is
pastors did that too, George. I mean, I'm not trying to defend. Maybe I'm just.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
I mean, is that because of how he feels or because he's weak? I don't know. I mean, pastor did this. Many pastors did the same thing.
Well, to your point earlier, the damage is the same.
Yeah, I agree. Right. No, I'm not defending it. I'm just telling you. I mean,
but
when you
remember,
say that
this
he hates
man's
conservatives, I don't know.
Well,
You're talking about his voting record.
Look at his voting record.
Got it. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, on key issues that are significant. I mean, from amnesty to gun control, Nico, this is unacceptable.
The gun
man.
control thing
What
is
are you doing?
bizarre.
What are you doing running as a conservative? And this is the guy he epitomizes. You run a certain way, and then once you get in office, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're out here talking about Jesus, how much you love him, care about the Christian conservative. And by the way, he's not the only one. This is why I was on the fence about Mike Pence in 2015.
All right.
Because I don't think Mike Pence was any better, to be honest with you. He ran rah, Religious Freedom Restoration Act, and we're going to stand up for.
To me, some of it,
2015,
some of it, to
and then
me,
he throws
some
him
of
into
it,
the basement.
Some of it is back to my fighting analogy, where you look great in the gym, hitting the mitts, hitting the heavy bag, working the double end bag, and then you get in the ring. The primary is really the boxing gym, because you're talking to people that can you just out conservative the opponent? Can you out progressive the opponent on the Democrat side? And then you get into the general, and then you're taking it from all angles, not just from your own people that want you to be a little bit more this or less that. So I don't know. I mean, no matter what, it's cowardice or whatever, lack of logic and reasoning, and you can't persuade people. Maybe it's because you're not persuaded by it yourself. I don't know, but I don't know, guys.
I'll leave it here, and because I don't want to. I'm making too much of a big point about Cornyn without quoting him directly. So here's his quote in the aftermath of the Floyd event. Quote, "Devastating events like the death of George Floyd remind us that we have a long way to go in the fight for equal justice under the law. There should never be a time in which the color of someone's skin determines whether they live or die. And we have to do everything in our power to prevent these tragedies from occurring in the first place." So in other words, Floyd was killed because he was black. And that's the narrative of the left.
Yeah.
We don't need the left when we have Cornyn.
Wow.
And that's the point. And people know viscerally at a visceral level, that this is what's happening time and time again, Nico, by their representatives in positions of influence. And it's nauseating, brother. How come Democrats never have to worry about that? What Schumer's been doing is running to the far left. Makes no apologies.
Oh, yeah.
Over the last 43 days. Mm-hmm. He doesn't give a shit about the blue dog Democrat.
No.
And yet we can't do that, over things that actually will help and benefit and bless the country. It's frustrating. So anyway.
It is frustrating. Well, Karen, anything else? We're going to wrap up.
I do have something to say before you wrap up.
Go ahead. It's okay.
I wanted to ask everybody that's listening and still with us right now what they think about another live event. And I just want to get your feedback because, we might look at a new place, and we also might think of charging to come in so that we can raise funds for Sidebar to continue. And so if you have any thoughts about that, or if you maybe want to help me organize it, I would love for you to reach out to me. I've said that you can email me at Karen Klaus, and that's KarenClauss at me.com. I would love your input on that. And if it's a thumbs up, then I want to start organizing that.
Yeah, and charge you mean like $25.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not
yeah.
talking, yeah.
Well, I
It's
would
more of a
love to charge
donation.
$500,
Yeah,
but we'd all
yeah.
have to wear tuxes and dresses,
Yeah,
and
that's
we're
more
not
of
going to
a
do that.
Donation to the
We
cause.
just want a donation. And if you can't do the $25, you can do what you can. Maybe
Or you can do more if it's up to you. But
exactly.
but that's just
So
suggested.
please,
Well,
reach out to me.
We're trying to
and-
define it, plan a little bit, timing.
Yeah, I would love for you to reach out.
Venue.
And, of course, I would love your help also, but I think that this is I think everybody's ready for that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's what I was going to add
Thanks,
in.
guys. Salo, anything
Do
you
it.
good? Salo's good. Guys, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us. Well, look, this is for those that are Christian. I mean, tomorrow's Palm Sunday, right? And so as we get into Holy Week, and I wanted to bring up, the Passion and Holy Week and how important it is to the Christian faith. We're leading up to Good Friday, and then next week we will be on before Resurrection Sunday, and we'll talk more about that then, I guess, at the time. But for me, this is all, and I said this to the men's Bible study, and I said this on R-Rated as well. To me, this is always a week of deep reflection. The more that in my walk and my journey to Christ, as I studied the murder scene of a first century Jew that went by Yeshua, we translate to Joshua and then to Jesus, that we say Jesus. I think about, what he was going through before Palm Sunday, how they screamed and yelled, Hosanna in the high, and they're cheering for him. And then just days later, they're yelling, crucify him and to betray him because he didn't do what they wanted him to do. And he modeled courage. He had a purpose. He had a mission. It was love-driven. And he showed, he gave us the model of not having timidity, as 2 Timothy 1:7. But he had a cause. And so for me, being a very cause-driven person, and part of my cause is wanting people to be exposed to the gospel, because I believe it's only one way to be saved, and it's through Jesus Christ. I believe Christianity is logically consistent and does not violate the law of non-contradiction when you properly handle the word of truth, 2 Timothy 2:15. I believe that the church needs to understand 1 Peter 3:15 to always be prepared to give an answer to anyone who asks why you have the hope within you. And so this is a week for me of reflection. Palm Sunday, Holy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, leading up into Good Friday, where Jesus, was crucified on a cross willingly for us. Lack of due process, by the way, George, with the religious leaders overnight, and
Lack of process entirely,
right? Yeah,
Do or not.
Yeah, exactly. But yet Sunday came around, and then the resurrection, which I believe is a historical event. I mean, this is not just something Christians talk about. I believe it can be defended objectively and evidentially. So,
And if you want to read about what Nico's talking about, Matthew 21, 1 through 11, Palm Sunday is the inauguration of the last 7 days of Jesus' ministry. So it was a packed week. Well, boy, did we learn about humanity.
yeah,
Right?
All right, guys. God bless you. Have a wonderful week. Thank you. Bye-bye.